So I've seen a lot of hate and dislike towards chapter 355 of My Hero Academia over this All For One scene right here, where as soon as he was going to launch an attack at JIRO and Tokoyami, the vestiges of the quirks he had stolen from in the past prevented him from using the quirk that he was going to fire at JIRO and Tokoyami. When this happens, he says, "The quirks I've stolen from the past, their very wills. Impossible. Even New Order didn't manage this. They were spurred on by this, by the weakness of such pushovers." Now, the reason why everyone doesn't like this is because these vestiges decided after all this time to finally rebel against All For One because JIRO was able to get through to the vestiges with just her words about All For One making her friends cry. It's also theorized that the reason why she was able to affect the vestiges the way she did was because of her quirk, which it's important to keep in mind that when she said that to All For One, she was hitting him with her heartbeat surround legato super move. So a lot of people are up in arms about this because they believe that there was absolutely no prior setup that would lead us to believe that this would happen. But I believe that this was actually indirectly foreshadowed before, and the reason why the vestiges rebelled is because of JIRO's feelings, which I know it sounds super weird because of the way I said it, but I have the evidence to back it up. So let's begin with the vestiges and why the vestiges will start rebelling like this all of a sudden. For this, we have to go back to the Paranormal Liberation War arc where Deku and Shigaraki are in the One For All world. Here, All For One says something very interesting in chapter 287 when it came to his vestiges, where he says, "I'm prone to the oddest dreams from time to time. In my dreams, those whose quirks I've stolen show up to hurl abuse my way. These episodes often leave me discouraged. Am I really capable of feeling guilt for my sins like some literally ordinary person? But here's the strangest part. Once I get rid of a quirk, its former owner stops haunting my sleep. Bizarre, no? Especially since I'm certainly the type to hold a grudge myself." Here, we see that All For One's vestiges work entirely differently compared to that of One For All's vestiges, where in the One For All world, prior to its growth inside Deku, the vestiges didn't really interact with the current users, but with All For One, his vestiges seem to have been a lot more conscious of what was going on and would directly interact with him from time to time. Remember, the people that All For One had stolen those quirks from, for the most part, were not bad people. A lot of those people were actually manipulated by him or straight up had their quirks forcefully taken from them. Most importantly, this shows that his vestiges have in the past rebelled against him before in more of a verbal sense due to the lack of willpower than a physical one, like we see them preventing him from using their stolen quirks when he tries to attack JIRO. As we see in chapter 355, All For One is surprised by the fact that they were physically preventing him from using a quirk that he had stolen. His reaction shows that this is something that has never been done before, and he states, "The quirks I've stolen from the past, their very wills. Impossible. Even New Order didn't manage this. They were spurred on by this, by the weakness of such pushovers." This tells us that those vestiges were moved and acted in response to JIRO's feelings. But how? Because like All For One said, New Order couldn't do this and no one else was capable of doing this either until JIRO. To understand this, let's now dive into how vestiges react to the emotions of the current users and others. In chapter 305, when Deku is talking to all of the vestiges of One For All, Nana Shimura says this, "You looked at him and saw someone who looked like he needed saving. That's what you thought. We know that much because we're in sync with your emotions." Meaning that the vestiges are able to know what's going on through Deku's feelings. All Might, someone who is alive and was once a user of One For All, can also do the same thing, but in vice versa, as when he makes physical contact with Deku, he is able to understand and know what is going on in the One For All world by the feelings flowing from Deku. He is able to sense Deku's conversation with the vestiges, though the way he senses them doesn't come in the form of words. It came from whatever his vestige was thinking and feeling that flowed from Deku to him. Now, this is extremely important because All For One can do the same thing, except unlike All Might and Deku, he has the ability to communicate back and forth with his own personal vestige that resides inside of Shigaraki via radio waves. And this is where JIRO comes into the picture. As we know, JIRO's quirk earphone jack gives her the ability to plug in the jacks hanging from her earlobe into all kinds of things and amplify the sound of her heartbeat through them. The vibrations of her heartbeat are capable of destroying things from the inside. Since Since JIRO is only capable of amplifying her heartbeat by plugging her jacks into something, JIRO has a support item called Amplifier Jack, which are these two little speaker devices that she can plug into that allows her to amplify the sound and vibration of her heartbeat, thus releasing a powerful sound wave from them. And this is exactly what we see JIRO doing in chapter 355. But how is this important at all? Well, leading up to JIRO's heartbeat surround legato attack on All For One, we see that JIRO, after being hit by All For One's blast, she is being filled up with a ton of emotions, having her heartbeat being perfectly displayed through the panels. With each panel, her heartbeat gets faster and louder as she remembers that All For One is the reason why her friends Aoyama and Deku have cried and been depressed through the immense pressure of All For One being this looming threat over them. So she releases this powerful sound wave of amplified emotions that came from her heart blasting All For One, thus leading us to two different outcomes, theory-wise of course. The first being that all of this emotion transmitting from JIRO to All For One most likely allowed her to indirectly and unknowingly flow that emotion from her sound wave through All For One's radio wave, making it so all of those vestiges felt and knew what she was going through, and it inspired some of them, making their wills stronger and giving them the will to do something, which led them to prevent All For One from using their stolen quirks to attack JIRO and Tokoyami. The second outcome is almost like the first one, except instead of her emotions being transmitted through All For One's radio waves, it was instead felt upon impact, since those radio waves are coming straight from JIRO's heart, making those amplified emotions hit deeper within All For One to his vestiges. Of course, when I say within All For One, I don't mean the emotions are directly changing or impacting him specifically, just the vestiges within him. Again, I believe that evidence I provided of All For One's vestiges having already done some sort of rebelling in the past, the way the vestiges are able to understand and communicate through emotions, All For One having the radio wave quirk, and JIRO's attack being emotionally charged, prove that this was indirectly foreshadowed to happen. It just so happened that JIRO was the one to set things off in All For One's vestige world and not someone like Deku, which I believe this theory will make things a lot more connected in this way. With that said, I do think a lot of people are overreacting to the chapter. The chapter pretty much ended on a cliffhanger and may or may not get an explanation for it in the next chapter or in the future chapters to come. This is a theory on speculating what may have happened in this moment between JIRO and All For One, but some of the fan base are getting mad purely based on their own speculation on what's going on. I know a big complaint is the fact that there was no obvious setup that this was going to happen, and for me personally, I don't think everything needs to be set up prior to a fight, because how many times in any piece of fiction have fights gone down where there was no prior setup to certain things happening in the fight, only to have those things be set up during the fight and still be really good. It's okay to criticize the chapters, I'm not saying it's not okay at all, but the arc isn't over yet, and some of the fan base have already made up their minds on the series and arc just based on the things that didn't go their way or how they wanted certain things to be handled in some chapters. And with that mini rant out of the way, let me know in the comment section below your thoughts on the theory itself. Does it make sense to you? Do you think Horikoshi had indirectly foreshadowed that this was going to happen with All For One and his vestiges? Do you still hate this chapter, or was I able to change your mind on what happened? Let me know everything in the comment section below. Let's have a civil discussion about this theory and chapter in the comment section below. Again, the series isn't over yet, so let's give it some time. Like always, thank you all for watching today's video. If you enjoyed this video, then be sure to Detroit smash that like button below, as well as share this video with your friends. It greatly helps the channel out a ton. And if you are new to the channel and you like My Hero Academia content, then be sure to subscribe to the channel, as well as hit that notification bell to join the Kitoroki Hero Academia to become my hero. Again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.